Safemoon US LLC, building anything, it'll be totally illegal. And he will take that deal.
One second. Also, anyone's welcome to come up. I'm down to have multiple people up here talking today. I'm just starting the YouTube side of things, and it's amazing to have you up here, Truth, because, like I said, the law thing that all is way over my head, and it seems so complex. It seems more complex than crypto. um,
It is.
wh why do you think John would take that deal?
Because, like I said, because of all the evidence that he would have against him, the people that are lined or will be lined up to speak against him, and intricate conversations that he had will definitely criminalize him. Even the Discord messages, all of that is going to land on him. He'll take that deal. You can mark my words. Believe what I say, it's going to happen. Yeah, I mean, everybody's like, oh, no, John's not. Okay. You're not John. You're not sitting in a prison right now, and you're not going to get bail Wednesday. So what would you do? What would you do if you was in his shoes right now? That's the question that everybody should be asking themselves. Am I going to save my ass, or am I going to take the plea and say and you know look like an idiot to everybody else? I take the plea. I'm sorry. That plea deal will be handed to him today by his lawyer. If not today, tomorrow. It's up to him to take it.
Aren't they like confiscating his funds and stuff? So like, would he even have the ability to pay for lawyers and stuff if they're taking
Yeah.
his money?
That'll be done Wednesday when his bail hearing is set forth. They'll also, I'm pretty sure they'll make a motion to freeze all his assets if they haven't done it already. But that will be a motion on Wednesday. That would be, I mean, that's a no brainer. They would do that Wednesday if it gets to Wednesday.
Because it seems like a lot of the times how the stuff goes is if you try to fight it, it's going to cost a ton of money and you could get a worse sentence. But if you just admit to it, you get like a lighter sentence and you don't have to spend as much money or something.
That's correct. But the thing is, like I said, once they put all of the affidavits in his face as far as what Papa may have agreed to, or I keep calling this man Papa, Thomas has agreed to, and anybody else that has submitted affidavits against him, once all of that is put on the table in front of his lawyer is going to recommend that he take the deal if they offer him one, and also surrender all his assets, and also disband Safemoon LLC, Safemoon US LLC.
Do you think, actually, is there anything else that you think that like the average person like myself wouldn't know regarding like what's going down as far as the indictment and the DOJ? You know, a lot of people are comparing it to like XRP. Can you elaborate on that and why it's not the same thing as XRP and how different it is?
Okay, so the difference between this case, fraud, and XRP, which was not a case of fraud, it was a case of illegal or, yeah, illegal or unregistered securities, which they dropped that case or lost that case because XRP in itself is not a security. Now, the reason why, because XRP was a gift, and Ripple, the company, was in effect before the token was being used. So it wasn't like they developed the token and then built the company. They didn't do that. They had the company first, and then XRP was gifted to them to use as a liquidity provider. So therefore, XRP is an unregistered. I mean, it's not a security. But for the fraud part, you see that case was dismissed because they couldn't prove fraud because they wasn't dipping into the LP and taking money out for their own ill-gotten gains, as so they say. But with SafeMoon, SafeMoon was different or is different because SafeMoon basically put out a token to build the company. Big difference. So therefore, the token itself would be considered a security because it was used to build the company, not the other way around.
It's
Any
really
lawyers?
interesting.
Yeah, any lawyers in the house, feel free to jump in. Like I said, I'm a law student, not a lawyer. Feel free to jump in and correct me.
Yeah, if anybody wants to come up and say anything about what's going on, I would have had a space, but I was working all day whenever all this went down. And I think I had a lot of people. I was working and I was like, dude, my phone is buzzing like crazy. I was like, what is going on? I had tons of people reaching out to me and they're like, are you happy yet? Get out there and gloat and stuff. I'm like, what are you guys talking about? And I was like, oh, John is arrested. Thomas is arrested. I was like, holy cow. I was like, I can't believe that happened. And
Well, you also got to look at, we only have two indictments right now, and that is the DOJ and the SEC. You haven't seen the IRS's play in it as of yet. It will come, and it is coming because, he probably didn't pay taxes on all this money that he's indicted for. If he gets indicted, if he takes the plea deal, he has to look at that as well. Now, as far as that civil court, that civil suit that he has in Utah, that everybody's screaming, "Oh, he won!" No, he didn't. Actually, that case is tomorrow. John is supposed to appear in court tomorrow for that case in Utah.
which one is that?
That's the Utah case. I can't remember what it was, but there is like five individuals with a class
That's just a
action lawsuit.
lawsuit. Oh,
Right.
okay. So he's
Yeah.
having to deal with that
But
too.
but you got to remember that
Uh,
lawsuit is basically fraud. If you look at the complaint, it is fraud. So therefore, that comes into a big play. And let's see, what did John get arrested for again? Let me think. Oh yeah, fraud.
yeah, I think this is like, as far as, the timeline of all of this happening is, I kind of, when I quit covering Safemoon in a positive way, I kind of gave out this warning that, like, if you would sell because John got arrested, then I said that's when I would sell, as if John got arrested. I ended up selling a little bit before that, but that's just because I didn't have a lot of money. It wasn't a big decision for me. If I had had a lot of money worth of SafeMoon, I probably would have sold a long, long time ago. Um, but I do remember talking about and trying to give people a warning on, like, John might get arrested. Like, I don't know. I don't know how the courts are going to work. I don't know how they work when it comes to crypto, or how fast they work. Like, they don't say publicly what they're doing. It just kind of happens out of nowhere. Um, but I tried to give people that warning that, hey, John could get arrested for this, and I can't see the project ever recovering from. I couldn't see it recovering from John not being arrested, just the position that he'd been in with the fraud and everything. But or with all the evidence that had been exposed at that point. But with him being arrested, it just seems like it's sealed. Like, SafeMoon's done, and John's probably going to jail. Thomas is probably going to jail. Kyle's probably going to jail, or going to be sentenced for a long time. What do you think about that? Oh, also,
Well,
real quick, if anybody wants to join, you can join on Twitter, or you can just raise your hand and come up and say anything about how much money you lost. You can talk about really anything that you want to get off your chest. And I'm not gonna. My main thing in my spaces is just be respectful. So I'm not gonna let people like be hateful to you or anything. So if anybody wants to
thank you.
come, just raise your hand. Yeah.
Yeah, but to answer that, so with Thomas taking a plea deal, he chances are he'll do maybe 5 years instead of the whole shebang which they were going to get him for. He'll probably do maybe, I'm sorry, maybe about 10, but he'll get out in 8 for good behavior. Then he can go back to his stash that he's got stashed away and live a happy life. John, on the other hand, he'll get, if he takes the deal, if he takes a plea deal, he's looking at maybe 15 years, 20 years, and, good behavior. Don't drop the soap. He'll be out in maybe 10, 12. But if he was smart, he'd do the whole thing, come out and get to his stash and live a happy life as well.
One thing that I was found really interesting about the indictment was that it appeared like they had all their messages.
They do.
Like,
Tell you know, Discord is not like like Apple. It's not. A small subpoena can get you conversations. It doesn't take much to get that, so yeah, that's open. It's in the air pretty much. It's open source as far as I know, Discord is. So if it's open source, those records are out there.
well, we immediately started seeing messages that looked really bad just in that, which means I bet they have a whole lot worse. But there was specifically the one where Thomas was saying, "Guys, we effing did it," and I don't think anyone noticed that I sold Safemoon. I was like, "Oh man, that one looks real bad."
Yeah, and it's actually out there. It is probably it's recorded. It's on it's out there. You can get it. Now all you got to do is, like I said, just request their what they call secret chat or that other chat room. All of that is being, it gets recorded. If you're typing, it's there. As now, as far as voice, I don't know, but I know if you're typing, any kind of text that goes through is is be recorded on a server. Tells you that when you sign up for Discord. So I don't understand how funny they are, and even in your emails, subpoena. I mean, this is a federal case. They'll subpoena their emails back and forth. I mean, all of this is going to come out, and
That's
when
what's
it
so
does,
amazing about this is like this is John was trying so hard to hide everything. Like even with a lawsuit, I think it was just like didn't want the information to get out. And it seems like this is going to force all of the behind the scenes information to come out and everybody's going to know what was going on in the dark.
for him to walk like most of these maxis are saying, for him to beat these charges, the only way he's going to beat these charges is if he pretty much assassinates Papa and everybody else that would talk against him. That's the only way. I mean, somebody's going to sing. It's the old saying: if you do a crime by yourself, the only person that knows you did the crime is you. But if you do it with a friend, he gets caught. Guess what?
Yeah, he's going to take care of himself by ratting you out.
Well, as far as I know, Thomas has family. John is suing his family, and his family probably doesn't care about him.
Yeah, that's like a really interesting, like it's no way this isn't going to be a documentary one day because the fact that yeah, that he ended up going to the Gambia and then starting that partnership, and then now he's suing his mom, and now they've taken him to court, and there's too much money involved, there's too much attention involved, in my opinion, for this not to be like a documentary one day, or even potentially a movie.
Well, it'll
Um,
be a documentary, just like Bit Connect was a documentary on Lifetime. I mean, not Lifetime, but the National Geographic. So, I mean, you can go on YouTube and look at that documentary. All these fraud cases, even SBF will have its own. Bernie Madoff got one. I mean, just look at all the Ponzi schemes that went down. There's a documentary on it.
yeah, and I think we're going to be seeing more messages come out as the time goes on that will potentially be damning. I don't know how much as we watch the conversations go down. That's why I think one person who might need to also be arrested is potentially Jack Haynes, because I know that Jack Haynes was the connection to Ben Phillips. Ben Phillips is the one came in. He reached out to all of the celebrities, Jake Paul and them, and then they started promoting SafeMoon, and that was through, I believe, Jack Haynes, unless I'm getting the order of that messed up. But I think it was Jack Haynes who knew Ben Phillips, who brought Ben Phillips on, and then Ben Phillips proceeded to dump on everybody while promoting it. And that's another thing is it seems like the whole team was dumping. Not the whole team was probably the main problem of why the price went down so much. That was one thing I was wanting to talk about with somebody who's good with crypto and stuff is when they talk about adding like liquidity with the 5%, it doesn't raise the price, it stabilizes the price. So whenever, and I think this is, if I'm understanding this correctly, somebody can come up here and correct me if they want. But if you pull out liquidity, you actually don't change the price of the token. you change the stability of the price. So if you pull out a ton of liquidity, the price will stay the same, but when somebody sells, it's going to have a massive impact on that price. And so
Exactly.
if we had $200 million of liquidity, that means that tons of people could have sold at extremely high prices and taken that profit. And somebody could have sold for millions and the price would have had such a strong stability to it so that other people could have taken profits as well. But because they
Correct.
pulled such a massive amount of liquidity out, when people sold, the price tanked like crazy.
Correct. So, as the DOJ stated, if the liquidity would have been left alone, $200 million in there, and the market cap set at close to $9 billion, there would have been a 45,000 increase, which meant that everybody would have been rich. Everybody would have walked out with millions, if not thousands of dollars, and still be going. The price would have probably been about maybe 35, 40 cents, but it didn't.
Yeah, so
And if
they
anybody's asking, I
yeah.
did get into Safemoon. I got into Safemoon April 9th. That's when I actually bought my first, after I figured out what the hell a pancake swap was and a slipperage. That's when I got in. So yeah,
Dude,
I was in.
that's one of the main like major components of SafeMoon was that most its holders were new to crypto. Like it brought people outside of crypto. I think people outside of crypto were looking for the next project they thought was going to be big, and SafeMoon was the one that convinced everybody. And so they learned how to do pancake swap, they learned how to do, all the frustrating parts of crypto. I remember whenever I was buying SafeMoon, I was like, dude, this is so annoying and like hard to figure out that I felt like if I figured it out, that I would be ahead of all the people who were too lazy to figure it out right now. So that was like another reason why I was bullish on it. Um, and Yeah, I don't know. There's just so many things that could be said. But if somebody wants to come up and say anything, just raise your hand. I'll keep an eye out. Or if you want to be a co-host with me, because sometimes it doesn't show me who's raising hands, um, then that would be sweet as well. Really, anybody who feels like it. I trust you guys. Hey, what's up, Mobile Trades? I'd really like to just hear everybody's take on this because it feels like we all went through this crazy ride together of this massive, hype, hope, FOMO, believing in them to slowly, one after another, losing faith in everything over a long period of time to just finally John's arrested and indicted and it's done with. And we were all like, part of that together. So, um, yeah, if anybody wants to come up and share how they've been impacted by the whole thing and how they feel about SafeMoon now, just raise your hand. Um, yeah, that was one of the major components of why I think SafeMoon did so well is because it brought in so many new users, and we were blind to like if I went back in time and got in SafeMoon now, I'd be able to go look at the blockchain and because it was there for all of us to see. We could all see certain things. I don't know how early on people tagged John's wallet. Like I didn't really know about John's wallet until CoffeeZilla talked about it. Otherwise, we could have looked at it and we could have. It would have taken somebody who knew what they were doing and some detective work. I don't think an average person could have put together John's stuff because you would have had to connect the Gabe wallet. You would have potentially had to have done that from the Moondog wallet. You would have had to have been able to see that it was receiving tons of Bitmart. You would have had to know what was going on with the liquidity transferring. It wasn't just blatantly obvious like Kyle's was as far as like remove liquidity and sell. It was done in a very weird way that was kind of complex. So, and I don't think there might have been some holders who knew about that, but I don't think most of us, we were still just learning like the most simple things. So it kind of, in the sense, was like one of the most perfect scams if John was smart enough to go somewhere where he wouldn't be in anyone's jurisdiction, if that's possible. Because you had thousands to millions of people that are idolizing you, worshiping you while you're stealing their money. Like that's what I'm saying. Whenever John took the LP, that was you selling. That was your family selling. A lot of people told their family about it. A lot of people put their life savings in it. They put way too much into it. You could have taken profits. And they tried to say like, oh, these maxis that are saying John deserved the liquidity. He needs the money to pay for things. No, he literally directly stole that from all of us as holders and investors. And another thing that I would say to this, and I don't, you guys are welcome to come up here and disagree with me because I'm not saying I know everything. It's just my opinion, is that I think that they're the main reason that the price went down. Ben Phillips, Kyle Nagy, especially John Karony and Thomas. And if they hadn't, it is possible, I believe, that that momentum that we had going up could have kept going up to and taken us to even higher all-time highs potentially. So it's possible that not only did they take your ability to sell $200 million worth of liquidity from everybody, but they also took what could have been a much higher all-time high. If the FOMO had increased, if the price had kept going up, people would have kept getting in. That's why I always say in projects, the momentum for a project, the FOMO is the price moving up. That's like the number one mover of growing a project. As long as that price keeps going up, it doesn't matter how stupid the name is, how terrible the utilities are. Safemoon didn't have anything, and it'll just explode because people believe this thing's going to make me rich. And the most convincing idea of that is your bag going up and telling your family, hey, I have this much now. So I don't know. It's definitely insane to think about. And I did this. I posted something asking everybody, how much did you lose in Safemoon? Me, I probably lost like $800. I probably lost $600 to $800. Not an insane amount. I got someone requesting. I'm trying to bring you up. Oh, hey, what's up, DeFi Cody? You there, brother? You can speak whenever you just got to unmute your mic. What's going on the YouTube side of things? Oh, there you are. Go ahead, Cody.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep,
Yeah.
you sound good.
Yeah, I just kind of want to touch on what you're saying. I like looking back, it almost feels like every time we did hit some momentum, it we'd like tank. Like it's almost like they were being sophisticated with it. Like it made it look like whales were selling and taking profit. But hindsight, it was just them pulling from the LP, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that's that, it's actually everything about this is so freaking scammy because, and I've said this before that I've watched John Karony. I'm like, why is he going around giving speeches as if he's a visionary? And there's this one clip I was trying to find. It was him talking about kind of, he didn't say it this way, but it was what he brought to Safemoon from what he learned in his past experiences. And one of the things he learned through gaming, because that's what he was literally doing with Tano, with Thomas, right before that was working in video games. Was storytelling. And so I was like, why does John going around as if he's accomplished? He hasn't done anything yet. But I think that in his mind, through storytelling, he believed that he was the reason that Safemoon had done so well because he was so good and he was at convincing people of an idea, even if there was nothing there to back that idea up. And John was like a mastermind of it, as dumb as he might seem in other ways, dropping little hints here and there, and like, oh, an owl, and like maybe we're just stupid because the owl thing just turned out to be like an owl having sex on a phone call. But they played it off as if like they were doing this, next massive thing. And I think that John Karony was telling these stories to convince people to believe in him and to keep holding and to keep buying while he was taking the liquidity out and spending millions on himself. And I think that he thought this is what success is. This is what success looks like.
And I feel like if they would have just stuck to the plan and not been criminals or steal from the LP and stuff, like this thing could have been massive where they would have made the same amount of money in the end off of the tokens they own. Because, like, I mean, I still think the exchange with tokenomics was genius. If they would have burnt the supply down, I mean, the token in itself would have went through the roof.
Oh yeah, that's another thing is there's people that say that like Safemoon was. I don't think you're dumb if you believed in Safemoon. People that swing all the way that way. I think that Safemoon had massive potential, and that the people that were into it, yeah, it was insane. It was all thrown away because the control and the money was within such a small group of people that they didn't have the ability, like, in that I don't know if Hank is guilty or not. Like, I don't know. So I don't want to say either way. But I know in that clip that I just shared from CoffeeZilla's video, and we had it before his video, but that clip of him saying, we had so much FUD happening because John wanted to rug the LP. And we said, let's lock it up. We don't need it. And then he said, no, we can use it. And then Hank's own words, and this was so long ago. And I was always like, wait, why aren't we all freaking out about this? How come everybody's making so light of this comment that a behind the scenes audio, I believe it's behind the scenes, I don't think he thought it was going to get out, was Hank saying, literally using the word saying John wanted to rug the LP. And I get along with Hank just like I got along with Thomas. I always told Thomas when I got along with him, I was like, hey man, like, like you're kind to me, I can be respectful and kind to you back, but also at the same time, I can't just push aside what it looks like, you've done. And I would tell them that straight to his face and in spaces and stuff. Um, so yeah, I forgot where I was going with that. Something about Hank saying that John wanted to rug the LP. Somebody help me. We were talking about, sorry, I'm just checking some messages. And yep, anybody can come up if you guys want to come up. It makes it easier to keep the conversation going. Yeah, we were just talking about the massive amount of what it is that they did, right? The fact that they were pulling the LP and what they were doing while they were pulling the LP. Like the fact that Ben Phillips was saying, like, I hope these whales get run over by a bus while he's pulling the LP. Like if Ben Phillips dies by getting run over a bus, that is gonna just be fate, right? That's kind of what you wished upon yourself. You were stealing the LP while doing that. People try to defend Kyle. That was actually one of the points I wanted to hit on today was that, and I don't know, I really appreciate it if there's anyone here who knows their stuff. Did Kyle create B token? Because B token was a rug, right? That B token is the contract that was copied to create Safemoon. And my thoughts are like, okay, if I was going to create a cryptocurrency, why would I copy a contract that was a rug when anybody could just look at that contract and see that it was copied and be like, it's the same thing, stay away from this rug. If I was trying to be legitimate, why would I copy something that was, clearly a rug? And so my thinking is that he created B token. I don't know. I just would think that if I was him and I created a scam and I made a little bit of money and I was lazy, which you probably are lazy if you're scamming people. That's what most scammers are, is just lazy people who just want to steal other people's money. I'll just copy this contract, change it a little bit, change up the wording on it, which the wording was pretty insane on how when people try to defend Kyle, that he said that the LP was locked and that he didn't have any tokens in the very beginning of SafeMoon. So there's already like massive scamming, in my opinion, going on at the very beginning of the creation of SafeMoon before Thomas and John were brought on. All right, cool. We got somebody else. Yep. Anybody come up and share what's on your mind. Hey, what's up, Vix?
Hey, good morning. My understanding is that that B token came beforehand, and that he actually got rugged himself on that, and then eventually he created Safemoon to try to do the same thing. If I remember the timeline, that's the way it went. In other words, he got rugged. He realized, oh, I can do this too. Created Safemoon, pretty much carbon copied it, and then basically it caught fire, and then he didn't know what to do with it. Thus, he put it in Thomas's hands. But it was intended to be a rug from the get go.
So instead of being like, man, there's terrible people out there, I'm gonna be a good person, he was like, man, there's terrible people out there, I'm gonna be a terrible person.
Yeah, pretty much. It was like, oh shit, this was easy. I can do this too. And then copy paste, change Safemoon like you said, and voila.
Hey, what's up, Josh? How's it going, man?
Pretty good. Heard you guys talking, and I was in another space earlier, but I came in here and right at this time with what you guys just said, I'm like, I remember being in some spaces back then, and this exact conversation happening. We knew early on that Kyle was planning on rugging this thing, and he gave it to John or to Thomas, and Thomas brought on John, and that was the narrative that John saved the project from the rug, and that I think that was the beginning of this cult-like mentality that's brought us all to this point. To be honest.
Yeah, because there's people like trying to defend Kyle. I don't know why would somebody would try to defend Kyle at this point, but that was another thing, and I'm curious. Anybody up here, you can just speak whenever, as long as it don't get like out of hand. Um, I asked John's uncle that in a post. I was like, hey, do you think that Thomas and John came in with like decent intentions, good intentions, which it's hard to imagine that they didn't because of them doxing themselves, right? Um, and then eventually, once they had the opportunity, like, oh, hey, we could just take this, or oh, what if we just skim a little bit off the top, you know? That's what I think. You know, do you guys think that they came in like knowingly planning on scamming people, or do you think they came in with good intentions and then greed got the best of them?
I think they always meant to take the money. Um, maybe not as much as they did. I think it was just that it may have been a combination of um, narcissism, selfishness, ignorance. You know, who knows? But what you have, I think, is that once they started taking and they realized how brainwashed most people were, or just ignorant of blockchain transactions and how to view them, they just started taking without care. And then once they were able to hide a lot of their changes and their shadiness behind a proxy contract, I think it was over. And they just took and took and took until nothing was left.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend to know what they thought on the way in, right? If I could read minds, trust you me, I'd be a hell of a lot richer than I am today. But at the end of the day, I think he is right that whether that was the intent from the beginning or it developed into that, I think you're 20 something, you're broke, right? You're living in mom's driveway in a trailer beforehand, and all of a sudden you've got millions at your disposal, sitting a couple clicks away. I think anyone's knees would have buckled.
But they tried to share that wealth in a way that, because let's not act like they didn't know this. John tried to take some of that money. He invested it in real estate, not just cars and stuff like that, but he also invested in the Scraggs company, which he then bought Orbital Shield from. That code was already written and had nothing to do with Safemoon whatsoever. So he invested in that company so that if he could increase if he could increase how much the company was worth, and he could also increase his holdings in it, right? And so he took this first product that they wrote, which was the Orbital Shield, modified it so that it would work, with their wallet or whatever. And that was kind of the first time when I started to see, really and truthfully, how unsecure and how inept, um, the team and their contractors were. For one thing, this is back before I actually started speaking openly about it, but I noticed that when apparently around the time that Orbital Shield before it came out, or right around the time it came out, that source code was uploaded to GitHub by the Lynn Scraggs or whatever his name is, and so I was able to fork it myself before he took it down. So I've still got a live copy of that source code. He included his credentials right hard coded into the source code itself, which is a huge no-no. Any first year coder would know that. Um, so that was kind of a red flag to me. The other thing was Orbital Shield. They keep saying that it was about security and this and that, but really all I saw was convenience. And if you know anything about security, at least in the IT space, which by the way, I've been in IT for about 20 years, so I can tell you that there's always this give and take relationship between security and convenience. Okay, the more of one you have, the less of the other you have. So Orbital Shield in essence is just a key phrase logger. The only thing that it does is it logs your key phrase for you so that whenever you lose your wallet, which was a big thing that people were doing back with, Bitcoin and stuff, right? In the early days, they lost their wallet. So it will save you from losing your wallet or your keys because you can just use a username and password to restore it. Now that we know that, that means that your keys have to be stored somewhere in order for that to happen. And so now, from what the FUD has let us know recently, we also know that those keys are being stored on a server somewhere that SafeMoon doesn't even have control over. So if that screams out anything to you about security, about what I've just said, it should, yeah, convenience is what you get, but security is not. In fact, I would say it's far from it. And we've been lied to about many, many, many things all along the way. But that was the thing for me that finally said, okay, no, these guys are lying.
But
Um,
Josh, correct me
yeah,
if I'm
so
wrong, but I think that's anyone who had their eyes open or even half a brain knew that those keys had to be stored somewhere, right? In order for that process to work, they have to have that stored somewhere. So anyone who's actually thinking this through and not being blinded by safe moon, knew that that was the case. And to think differently or say differently was just, especially somebody that's supposed to be in technology like they are, like, come on.
right. And then I sold right after the bridge hack. Knowing all this stuff, I was kind of, and I'll say it, I was kind of waiting for that one last pump if there was going to be one before I sold. I'd made up my mind that I was going to do it. But after the rug, I started looking into the details, the circumstances there, which was that we know now that the change that allowed that to happen in the contract happened immediately before it happened, right? It didn't exist earlier in that day. It was introduced as if they knew what they were doing. Um, and and to me, there was too much evidence that at least it could have been in-house, along with everything else I knew at the time, for me to stay in. So that's what I sold. But think about it. Even I had to think about it objectively, and I was like, even if I still believe this there was nothing malicious about it, you still got to admit to yourself that a company who, touts security all over the place got hacked by a rudimentary exploit that, like, obviously Chat GPT or any first year, smart contract coder could have told them, something was wrong with it. And so even if you believe in them at all, if you really want to have your funds secure, you can at least admit that with them, you're not going to have that. So,
What was your selling point, Josh? Like, what was the final thing you're like, yeah, I gotta sell?
so I sold, like I said, I sold right after the bridge exploit. I had made up my mind that I was going to. I was just kind of waiting for a good chance, whatever pump or whatever was going to come, maybe. But immediately after that rug, when they resumed trading, I sold. I didn't care, where it was at that point. I was like, my funds aren't safe, obviously. So, yeah, that was it for me.
Everybody up here, you guys can just talk whenever you want. Anybody's welcome to come up and just share anything you want about Safemoon, honestly. Were you about to say something, Bix?
No, I'm sorry. I was on a call. I don't know what was being said.
Oh, okay. I just saw your little mic going, so I thought you might. Yeah,
I'll tell you when I should have sold. I mean, well, okay, so I should have sold plenty of times, but there was a time when I probably had a good out. I was only about 50% down at the time, maybe less than that. I could have got out with about $4,000 after spending about six. So I was at a decent exit spot comparatively, right? And it was when I didn't talk to her a lot, but um at it was right around the time Carly left, and she called me up on the side and was like, "Look, these guys are trying to keep the price low. I don't know all the details, but they don't want people to be able to sell. They're stealing money, this and that." And she told me to sell, and I was still too hung up on windmills and all that bull to believe her. But turns out she was right about all that. Almost everybody that left had something to say that all lined up. So looking back on it, obviously, um, I knew times when I probably should have, but I
did
drank too
you
much.
I actually haven't seen her in a little bit. She was like in the space for a little bit and then she kind of disappeared.
Really? Today?
Oh, I mean, maybe I just, Twitter, I don't know. I just haven't seen her like active, but maybe I just
No,
in
I
a
mean I
while.
haven't talked to her in forever. It's
She told you that they were trying to keep the price low?
yeah, not that there was details. Like Carly's not that, informed on all that, but she I think she kind of explained to me that she had asked some questions or whatnot, and she wasn't being told, clear answers. But when she left, she told me that their scheme, um, they were doing something to the price to keep it down, to keep people from wanting to sell. And then that makes sense. I
Well,
mean, go ahead.
well, basically how they were running the project was doing that. That's one of the things I thought of was like the fact that they never delivered on the exchange or the blockchain. It was like, in my mind, I'm like, if people's hope is in the exchange and the blockchain, which most of it was, then what happens if you deliver that? The price doesn't go to the moon, then are people just going to lose faith in the project and take their profits and say goodbye? And I wonder if that's something that they were worried about, and so why they kept, delaying it and stuff.
I think in their minds, and again, this is total speculation, but I think that in their minds, they thought, something goes to the moon, then it shoots right back down. Obviously, you got one transaction where you can see it was rugged, blah, blah, blah. But let's keep the facade of a company going. Let's keep them thinking that as long as they keep buying the dip, that this thing is coming that will make them a millionaire. Now you've got this long running source of income that you can keep taking from, and no one ever knows it. I think that was John's kind of plan. And then the lawsuits with his mom and all these other things, the ruined Gambia relations, the employees leaving and coming out with truths, all of these things were working against him. And slowly but surely his cult following, kind of dwindled. Now it's still pretty big with people who are doing mental gymnastics trying to justify all this, but I don't think it's enough to keep funding his lifestyle. And all of that started coming to an end towards, before the rug, where they were running out of money to pay people. And I honestly believe that bridge hack was an inside job in order to try to get another round of funding. Could be wrong. I don't have any proof
Yeah, I've
one way or
seen
the other,
people
but
saying that. That's another thing that right before all this happened, the reason that I thought, because I asked John's uncle, is did John know this was happening? And the reason that I thought that was everybody just left Safemoon. Like, it was Jonas and then Hayden and then Vino and then like all of the like all of the names, like everybody was exiting, and it was like in my mind it was like one of two things: either they knew John something bad was coming with the John or the SEC, or that John was just running out of money to pay them. If he, I don't know who was being paid or not, but why is everyone suddenly leaving at the same time? And it happens to be because his uncle said that John had no idea that he was about to be arrested, but it happens to be right before he got arrested.
I'll tell you what, there's something else I remember at the time. I didn't think much about it at the time. I was talking with Carly one time, and she was looking to go to another project. And this was after she left SafeMoon, and one of the things she told me that she kind of complained about with SafeMoon was that I think she was getting paid in crypto. She's like, I want to get paid in regular money so I don't have to swap this out or whatever, so I can pay my bills. And I thought that was kind of interesting because I'm like, so the idea behind SafeMoon was there was this tax, and the tax was supposed to contribute to the LP, reflect back to holders, but also it was supposed to help build the operational fund for SafeMoon to be able to fund, development, paying employees and whatnot. And so I'm thinking to myself, like, why didn't the company cash that out and then pay their employees 1099, in-house, whatever, in cash? But instead, they were getting paid crypto, wallet to wallet. I'm like, okay, so, where did those tokens come from? Why was that done that way? And now it makes sense to me. I mean, if these guys, the team or John or whoever, they were holding tons of tokens that they shouldn't have, were they paying, employees directly out of the LP, or funds that they got back from Bitmart that was supposed to go back to the LP? Where was that money coming from that they were getting paid in tokens?
Well, there
It's
was
very interesting.
no other option, right? I mean, there was no developer wallet, no marketing wallet. So where else would they be paid from if not from the LP?
Right. And but the thing is, that's not how they advertised what was going to happen in the white paper. And I had this argument with people in the Discord before I was banned from there, but I kept saying, look, I don't know why people have this understanding that the LP is for anything other than trading the token pair, but that's all that's for. That's for trading. If you want to have an operational fund or a marketing fund or whatever, if that comes from a tax or whatnot, or you have to be transparent with people. And so if you're going to put in your white paper that here's how our token, is broken down, here's what the tax is and all, and then you turn around, you take from the LP and you pay employees or you pay for houses, cars, whatnot out of, funds that weren't destined for that, then that's called misappropriation. So no wonder they're in jail for all of this, and
And that there's the rub, right? Because if you put that on paper, right? If you say, hey, listen, we used X amount to pay for development, we paid X amount for marketing, but then there's another 2.5 million over here missing, and there's nothing ledgered there, then it would raise red flags, right?
yeah, so I'm just saying it for everybody that's listening that may have some hope that this thing is still legitimate. Understand this, even if they weren't taking money from the LP and buying cars or doing whatever else. Just the fact that they were taking from it, even for development, without disclosing that to investors, is shady. And then taking that money and buying assets that were personally enriching them, not just the stupid things, but like John investing that money into a company that's now, for him, that's not going to benefit us at all, and that money was not his to use for that. And so that's kind of again what I'm trying to say is that even without all of the blatant fraud, there's just a lot of shadiness going on, bad business practices that would have eventually taken down this company and left everybody in shambles. So it's just glad it kind of happened the way it did early on, and relatively early on, and with as much evidence as it did, because I think people would have still fallen for this and followed it for years had this not happened.
That's where I think it's like the most important time every time anything comes out is to kind of look at the future based on what we know, and we know a lot now, and then look at where people's mindset would be going towards, well, what if John this, what are we going to get our money back? And I've kind of seen I've seen two different things of people saying that I forget all the legal words and stuff, but another crypto that had fraud and they seized it and then they put the liquidity back in and they gave it back to like I don't know if they airdropped it or what happened, but they somehow were able to give it back to the investors. Do you guys think that that might happen with SafeMoon, or do you think the government would just keep it? Do you guys know anything about that?
Well, they'll, there's also penalties and fees that'll come out of that money. Um, so as far as the investors, uh, honestly speaking, from what I've seen before, pennies on a dollar. Uh, well, in this case, it ain't dollars, but anyway, yeah, they will recover as much as they possibly can. But you got to remember, a fraud case or SEC, they go for disgorgement. So you got to see what they, as the SEC, will disgorge from the company first. And after that, then it's the court fees. If he takes it a long route, then after the court fees, then you got, if he can't afford to pay a lawyer or whatever, then they have that minimum lawyer fee. Then the rest of it will go back to the investors. Oh, I forgot about that civil suit. So that the civil suit does come into effect as well. So now money has to go towards that civil suit for whatever it is. And then the investors will get whatever's left over.
And we don't even know like how much he has. He might have spent a ton of it already, right?
Yeah, he probably has. I mean, he's got. He. I don't think he would. I'm not, I'm just assuming. I don't think he would have spent over 80, $90 million in just like that. He's got stashes. He's got keys somewhere. He's got wallets somewhere. They're never going to recover all of that money. So let's just be honest with ourselves. They're not going to recover all of that.
You say he wouldn't blow through $80-90 million, but how much does that office cost to rent? How much does
Oh,
going to
yeah.
England 15 times, probably first class? I mean, no one's ever talked about that. How he was getting there and back and forth.
Actually, it was private jet. Sorry.
Oh, geez. Okay. Well, in
Yeah.
that case, then yeah, I could see somebody blowing through a nice big chunk of change.
Right.
It's not like there's another source of income, right? As far as we know, he doesn't have another job.
Well, no.
So just living every day, eating every day. The company, the people that work there, for
The
how
trips
long?
to
2 years?
Dubai.
Trips to Dubai for 2 years. Trips to
Yeah.
Gambia.
Right.
There, I don't know about
Can
80-90,
you
but
mute
you can.
your whoever's got that going?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Thanks.
sorry, nothing I can
It's
do about that.
yeah. It's yeah. I'm just saying. As far as recovery, very slim. Whatever they do recover, it's going to go to disgorgement to
That
make
was another
sure
thing
that the
is,
company, yeah, to make sure that the
oh, sorry,
company
somebody
doesn't
asked
exist.
John if if his family would take over SafeMoon for him, and he said that even if they wanted to, it wouldn't be an option. Um,
It's not an
so
option.
I don't know. Does that mean that nobody at this point can do anything further as like a company for SafeMoon? That it's
Just
strictly left to people buying it based purely off of hype? No.
right. What I'm saying to you and everybody that they're not understanding, forget about John, forget about Thomas, forget about Nagy. The SEC is going after Safemoon LLC, Safemoon US LLC. What that means is if they win, that is those companies, those two particular companies are no more. They will go for complete disclosure of it, and they would have to break up, sort of like library. They will break them up. It's not going to exist. You can create a SafeMoon 2.0 or a SafeMoon John's sake. You could create any other thing, but that as far as that contract token and that company can't have it.
You guys can just speak whenever. You don't have to raise your hand.
So if you guys think SafeMoon's going to be able to pay anybody back, they would have to basically divide it among 700,000 holders. So for every $1 million, you'd get about $1.30 back. There's only about 2 million left in the LP. Even if they recover 10 million, what are you looking at? Every holder getting about 10, 15 bucks back. Like I don't even think the government's going to waste their time or their money distributing the funds back. It's just going to be considered a completely
I think if they
investment.
did it, it would have to be to the wallets, right? Because they would
Yeah.
nobody.
There's
So
no
and
way
then it would be.
to determine the difference in between who owns what wallet.
Well,
So
then at
they
that
would
point it
literally
would
have
be.
to divide it on every
And
holder.
I hate saying this because this might be some people are probably going to take this and run with this. If this happened, I don't know what's going to happen, but if that happened, the people who hold the most, unless they do some type of snapshot to try to ward off people who are trying to take advantage of buying a lot of Safemoon before they redistribute, if they redistributed it, because then basically the larger portion you hold, the more you would get back. And I know
Right,
that I
but
know that Safemoon maxis are going to go just buy a bunch. Of
yeah,
Safemoon.
but even still, in order for you to claim any of it, you have to reveal yourself. Then
really?
that's when the IRS will step in. So you got to be careful when you decide you want to go ahead and claim this money, because
Oh,
it's going to be deemed as
you
unregistered
guys dodge your
security.
taxes.
Huh?
You guys dodge your taxes. I pay my crypto taxes, even though I
Do you
don't want
think
to. I pay my crypto taxes.
You have, well, as far as I know, I have to.
Where's my microphone? Let me turn the recorder on real quick. No, I'm
you
just playing.
think they would have something in place to, if that happened, this may not even happen, to prevent somebody on the outside from coming in, dropping $1 million in Safemoon, getting the biggest bag, and pulling the largest amount of the funds coming back? That they would have something in place to prevent that. I don't know. It's like crypto and law. It's like two extremely complex things together. So I don't know.
A lot of class action lawsuits, I think you have to fill out a form. So they may have us fill out a form and you put your wallet address or something, and they verify.
Yeah, so it might be, you might be coming in buying a lot thinking that you're going to get a bunch back, but then they go look at your wallet and they say you bought after all of this went down, you're an idiot, and then you don't get anything. So I think that's one area where I think that I've seen a lot of maxis hope go towards is that, and then the other one is that they think that John planned this and that he's going to have a major comeback. He's going to rise from like a phoenix and take over.
I'm pretty sure most of the money they recover is going to go towards court costs and investigation costs over the last few years. I would consider any payback on this is John sitting in jail for the rest of his life for stealing your money. I think that's the most value anybody should ever expect out of this coming from here. Don't expect a lawsuit. Don't expect $1 back. Don't expect anything back. But just be glad that that motherfucker might spend the rest of his life in jail.
Do you think he'll get a similar sentence as the FTX guy is going to get?
Close to it, because if you look at the sentencing table, there's two big factors in what's going to be his level of sentence is his malice, his intent, but not only that, the level of individuals that have been injured. He is well over 100,000 victims. Okay, that literally immediately almost puts him at a 50-year minimum. That alone.
Yeah, it's 10.
What if
for
they
the
prove
first
the
charge of
wash
all
trading
7 of
was
them.
does he have a ton of fake wallets out there? Is the army smaller than what they make it out to be? Will that be their defense possibly?
I don't know that. I think that's going to be a hard thing. I think they're going to be a lot of pointing fingers at each other in between Thomas, John, and the other guy, if they ever catch him.
Yeah,
Oh, he did this, but he said this was okay, but he told me to do this, but he said this was okay. It's probably going to be that, but I have a feeling that John's going to go down hard. Thomas's plea deal will probably get him a leniency, but I'm almost guaranteed Thomas is going to serve a lengthy sentence as well.
Do you think Thomas's argument is going to be that John wanted to do those things? I've kind of seen that already in some of the text.
100%, because he's always for getting paid to do a job.
Oh, it's Is it breaking up for you guys too? It's breaking up for me a little bit, or is that just on my end?
It's probably me. It's probably me. Can you hear me now?
Oh yeah, I think you and the guy that spoke before you were breaking up real quick. What did he ask? Did you think Thomas is going to what?
He thinks that is Thomas going to claim that he was just told to do this stuff, and I think so because he's always said that he just got paid to do a job.
That doesn't just being told to do something doesn't mean you're completely devoid of any punishment of it. Say, for example, in my industry, if one of my managers was like, hey, we're going to start pulling financial fraud and start upping these people's money and pocketing it, even if I was told I needed to do that to keep my job, but I knew it was illegal, I am still 100% breaking the law and consequent to the justice system. So just because his boss told him to do something, if he knew it was illegal, that doesn't fucking matter.
Well, and we have the text messages of him saying, guys, we effing did it, and nobody noticed that I sold. Safe.
Yeah, I think that's why he's taking the plea deals. I think his lawyer told him, like, look, we need to settle outside of the trial or you're done.
I think it's his only chance to ever be able to leave prison alive. Because again, if you look at the sentencing tables for federal courts, being a co-defendant, or not a co-defendant, but what's the term? When they assist the prosecution, it
conspirator or whatever.
Yes, it does reduce their levels. So on the sentencing table, it's like a point system. When you assist the prosecution in a situation like this, you get points reduced from your sentence. So I don't think Thomas is going to get away with it. He's not going to get freedom. He's just going to get a lighter sentence to where he might be able to leave prison alive sometime in the future.
Yeah, and I've seen people go, to court with felonies and end up pleading down to like misdemeanors, and it saves them like 10 years off their sentence. So if he testifies essentially against John, become cooperative, then they may bump even his charges down.
Yeah, I think John's going to miss his chances for a deal because we already know he already pleaded not guilty and he's already motioning for bail. So the system's not going to go easy on that guy.
He's got 7 counts against him. Each count carries a weight of 10 to 30 years each. Yeah. He might have pleaded not guilty then, but when his lawyer shoves that in front of his face today or tomorrow, it'll change Wednesday.
Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, just joining to say hello. I agree with a lot of the points that people have been making. In particular, a lot of us came into Safemoon way back in the day because we were looking for the most absurd play we could think of. Like the foolishness was part of the sale, right? Like we had seen Doge go crazy, and so we decided, like, well, let's pile into this. How could it go wrong? And then the more that they talked, the more it was like, these guys don't know what they're doing. So, it's unfortunate because it could have been pretty cool if there was never any promise to make a blockchain, if people just realized that utility was not it for this token. It was about absurdity. That would have been cool, and that might have done quite well. So I'm also a securities attorney, so I do kind of have an idea of what's going on here. So if there are any questions or anything, that's cool as well.
Have you been listening the whole time?
Do you think any, like, quote unquote insiders, some of the influencers who's been around for a little while who might have had some sort of inside communication, you think they're going to try to assist possibly either the defense or the prosecution?
They could be called as witnesses, and then it'll be up to the prosecution to decide whether to subpoena them, likely the defense. I'm having a hard time envisioning who is a good witness for the defense, so it's just a question of where the government wants to go. But
Sure.
The government, I'm sure, already has their case mapped out completely, and whoever they testify will.
Because what I'm curious about wasn't it Nicki Minaj or somebody who was sued recently because they were endorsing crypto?
Yeah, you can sue anybody for pumping something, especially if it's an unregistered security. So
I would actually like to see some of these Safemoon influencers also see charges for the way they just blindly said this is the best thing ever. Buy it. You're stupid if you don't see the math. Fucking dumbass motherfucker living in Vegas don't even know gambling properly, but he wants to tell people how fucking math works.
yeah, totally.
Like I want to see people like that also go down, because I think they were almost, in my opinion, a bigger issue than the people at SafeMoon, because they were the ones kind of driving the masses to go in and do that,
Yeah,
convincing people not to sell.
With that, it's going to be a question
Mhm.
of state of mind. You can be reckless, you can be intentionally fraudulent, you can just be negligent. So, there's a lot of influencers who got caught up in the hype and probably genuinely thought that SafeMoon was going to go to the moon. And there were others, Ben Phillips comes to mind, who knew exactly what was going on. So someone like that would be a great target in my view, because it would be easier to prove intent. And then on the other side, if someone's getting paid in tokens, and by the way, this is a problem for the whole space. If someone's getting paid in tokens and then selling them, that's when you enter into just simply selling securities land. Because the thing that the SafeMoon people don't really understand is that they defend the idea of we needed the liquidity because that's how you build a business. Unfortunately for them, that's admitting that you're a security. You're saying, hey, we raised money to build a business, which you can talk about the Howey test all you want, but that's what a security is. I'm raising money. You're later going to get rich because of the dope shit that I built. So there's a lot of ways you could attack the influencers, and selling securities is one of them. And if you want to go at it in a kind of fraudulent way, then you have to prove state of mind, which is often difficult, but certainly not impossible if there's texts and stuff to back it up. And with Ben Phillips, there almost certainly would be.
Well, the only reason you would do that is because you're trying to get money out of them, and most of these people don't have any money because they spend it all on SafeMoon, right?
It could be, yeah. Or I mean, to set an example, but if they haven't indicted anyone yet, at least the DOJ, I would doubt that they're pursuing criminal charges against anybody else. But the SEC, if they felt like it, could go after whoever.
Hey, Peter, I feel like there's a lot of people still hanging on to hope that he's somehow going to beat this. You hear a lot of talk about comparing it to XRP and even Coinbase, because it's, in my opinion, two of the latest ones that have actually either gotten past the SEC or beat them to a certain degree. Since again, you said you were a securities lawyer, would you be
Yeah.
able to just analyze real quick for us live here with the charges brought against them, the high rate of success that they've had, and just what you've observed here from the community? What probability would you say that this is a slam dunk, Karony's screwed, and no one's getting their money back?
Pretty high. XRP and Coinbase, those are civil actions, and in a way, those are just like the cost of doing business. Those guys were always aware that that was a potential liability for them, and there were no criminal fraud charges alongside it. If you want to make a comparison to Binance, because they've got some more troubling allegations about commingling and shady accounting practices. But even there, that's a well-established business that actually knows how to build an exchange. And not to talk shit, but it was pretty clear from month 3 that there was no actual kind of plan, unfortunately. And we all used to say, oh, unified DeFi, that's FUD. But I think one of the most important things is that folks like us have to be able to call out the bad apples among us, without feeling like we're against the space, particularly because a lot of these scammers are the ones that are holding the space back, right? So the XRP comparisons are obviously foolish. XRP actually has a business development team. They have stuff like that. And here's the thing about SafeMoon, as long as they can find a way to get out from under the management, their community is super strong. So to the extent DeFi is about getting communities together who share values and then pooling money into big asset pools, the community still has a chance. But they have to throw over their corporate overlords and get rid of them altogether, and just stop waiting for some Karony rabbit out of a hat, because it's not coming. It just isn't.
Well, the thing about that is if the community was trying to recover And that's the next option that they would do. And like I said that a long time ago, that their hope shifted from Thomas to Ryan to John, and then eventually to themselves, is what my guess was, that it would happen. They still have like the Safemoon. The world sees it as a scam. Everybody outside of Safemoon sees it as a scam. So they'd be trying to recover it with that reputation attached to it.
Well, but I think, you know, if somehow you could create some kind of a DAO, right? Like the Safemoon maxis or whatever you want to call them, they still exist. And if somehow they could put together a thing that says like, look, you know, the name Safemoon has come to represent more than any particular individual. We regret that we were misled by a team of thugs, but we all have spent a lot of hours together. We've spent a lot of time building community together. That stuff has value, and therefore we as a community, you know, excommunicate John, we excommunicate Thomas, all the rest of it. You know, that could be some really positive press. And then it could kind of, you know, set up its destiny as like a Pepe style meme where there's no money taken out of the liquidity. And then you're dealing with zero negative externalities and you actually have a chance. But as long as you've got that name, you know, that's attached to John, that's a problem. And certainly as long as you've got people taking liquidity out, like, what the fuck?
So they could. That's why I'm like, I'm a little gray on this area, and I'm sure other people are with me as well. Like they won't be able to seize the Safemoon contract or stop or put that to an end. That'll always still be public, and people will still be able to access that. Or is there
Well,
a chance that
I don't know who has access to the contract now, you know, whether it's John or developers, so that is a problem. You know, but if everybody with access is in jail, that's almost as good as renounced. So, you know, most people would say that there's better ways to spend your money than to invest in a pseudo-renounced contract in the hopes of surviving some kind of community. But I think many of them are still committed to plowing all their money into it. And if that is their goal, then they should believe in themselves rather than John beating this charge.
That's a double-edged sword, isn't it? Is it not? Because right, so let's say if it did become some sort of renounced contract or somehow it became a DAO, then you don't have a team actually developing anything, which kind of flies in the face of it being a security, right? Because you don't want somebody developing something and then you cashing in afterwards, because that is the definition of security. But at the same time, without that, what would XRP be without Ripple, right?
Not much, and that's why I think XRP is a security. But this is why like building a token is extremely
Not according to Judge Torres there, Peter. Come on now.
no, it
I
is.
still
I
feel
mean,
for security as well,
Click on my
but
profile,
that's a
check the
discussion
banner,
for
and
another
then say
day.
shit like that a lot. Come on, bro.
well, you got to read the opinion. It's a security in some cases and not in others.
I know, I'm joking. But
But
my point is that it would be nothing more than just another dead meme coin that's going to go nowhere at that point.
yeah, could be. Right. I mean, this is why there shouldn't be so many tokens. Like, there's millions of tokens, and most of them are ridiculous. But in my personal vision of DeFi, like, the reason we do this in the first place is because it's very powerful to pool money together. And then you can achieve the kind of positive externalities that large asset pools create. It's like taking the banker's advantage and giving it into the hands of communities. And if you can achieve that, and you have a reason for the community to not trust each other, but at least be together. Like, for instance, say there were a plumber's coin, you know, or a Navy Federal Credit Union token. Like, these are cases where people have reasons to be involved, and therefore, like, the amalgamation of capital can kind of take over. And then if you find sort of like an asset manager, then you can kind of go from there. You know, banks do so well because they can lend money, they can find higher rates of return because they have a lot of capital. And that's a cool vision of DeFi. Like, I certainly don't see that happening for Safemoon, unfortunately, because they're still waiting for the exchange or whatever. But I think a lot of communities are seeing this, and some of the bear market tokens are ones that are just like, hey, we don't care if we're on a centralized exchange. We don't care if the price goes up. All we want to do is build our liquidity and hang out and make memes. And even though that sounds silly, like, I think that's how DeFi wins.
I think DeFi wins when people stop seeking hyped up fun spaces and start actually taking the time to go through that boring nitty gritty education to learn about why DeFi is DeFi. I think it's more about security in your money than just making money. And I think again, this just proves time and time again why having just a token on a chain is never secure, even if it's a meme token. Because if you look at the past, 99.99% of meme tokens die every single time. 99.99% of every token that's ever been created dies.
The only one that has had any success, and it's because it has the richest man in the world tied to it, is Doge. Other than that, I can't think of a one that's actually had real success.
Doge also has proof of work behind it, so you actually have security in the existence of that network. It's not a coin riding on the BNB chain, relying on that chain's continuation. It's its own network. So that's one thing that I still kind of like about Doge, is at least it's proof of work. So you have that security in a truly decentralized network where you can't have one player or a group of bad players come in and steal all your fucking money.
Agreed.
Real
But
quickly,
with all
guys, just
that,
because
I agreed. But with all that, without Elon Musk, it'd still be just another dead coin.
True. I would agree with that.
Go ahead, Tech. What's going on, man?
Hey, what's up? Rudy, what's good, brother? A few things. So it's like, I believe like John has control of the keys, which means the U.S. government has control of the contract right now. The proxy contract is scary because it's updatable. Like if they wanted to shut that down and just burn everyone's tokens, that's possible. You still have the original Safemoon contract with that crazy tax, which is possible that gets relieved from 100% to whatever. I can see them tracing all of the money and finding all of that USDT. And I'm not saying that the government's going to work in the goodwill of the people, but I can see a possible claim going through. The other thing, I just saw some numbskull like post something about like all this stuff is operational, all the services that were being provided, all that stuff is centralized. So it's like the minute that those bills stop getting paid on all those servers, those services will start coming down one by one. So it's like those things you need to be conscious of. Like SafeMoon was very centralized, so like anticipate like if the man paying the bills can't pay the bills, those services will start coming down slowly. But it being a proxy contract sets a precedent that I don't think we've ever seen with the government having control at some point. And please, like, do not compare this to XRP. Like XRP, at no point were the executives, even though they sold hundreds of millions of dollars, arrested, right? Like they got ahead of the curve. They had an A1 level legal influence as well as institutional influence. This is not that. This has been revealed as something that was being controlled by a very small group of people. And with the evidence is all out there, like Twitter, all the people that got fudded to obscurity had valid points, and the data's all on chain. So it's like I don't foresee. I mean, John might not do FTX numbers 100 years, but he might do a few years and with some heavy penalties and hopes that they recoup. They say 200 million or whatever. You could really stretch money out on the blockchain and make it look bigger than what it is. But hopefully there is some sort of claim for of what he's taken, and they sell some of those assets and hopefully protect people who were really harmed through this process.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to because that's been the problem every time like bad news or bad things have happened, is there's been people that have been tried to use it and basically deceive people into losing more money. And I think that's going on right now. You have and it's kind of the last of the barrel, people left at this point. People, it's like you kind of deserve it if after all this information comes out, you're still believing it. But there's people who are saying that John's going to beat this, or John planned this. This is good for SafeMoon. It's more exposure. So there's a lot of bad voices that do not have your best interest in mind in this space, and that type of thinking has contributed to a lot of people losing a lot of money throughout the history of SafeMoon.
I think people do need to stop comparing this to XRP, because even though I'm not a big supporter of XRP myself, they did at least still run their business far more properly than you could say SafeMoon them. That they actually have a legit business model plan and you could say products and services. I find the easiest and best comparison would be Elizabeth Holmes with the Theranos situation, where she literally took majority of the money that was invested into her company and used it for herself. The only benefit to her is she actually went through the proper security laws, but then just was negligent with the money. John avoided SEC laws and was negligent with the money. So I think in myself, I compare this in terms of looking for like what charges he might look at and just the situation. I think Elizabeth Holmes is probably the best to compare him to.
If anyone wants to come up, you guys are welcome to come up and really say whatever's on your mind, whether you believe in Safemoon or not, or if you lost a lot of money, or if there's something you noticed that you want to talk about. Now's the time to do that. I'm just going to run this space for a couple hours and then I'm going to shut it down. But mostly the reason I did this just to kind of give an opportunity to learn from you guys, because a lot of you guys are real knowledgeable in different areas, and to just have a discussion about something we all went through together. It was a crazy ride to be on. Most of us have been on this ride. Some of you guys before us in March when it actually launched in April 2021.
People like
now,
Vix and I have been saying this exact shit for like 2 fucking years now.
So like that was another thing, is like people, I feel like Safemoon had massive potential, but nobody showed me like what CoffeeZilla showed me. I never saw that until CoffeeZilla's videos came out. I never saw the Gabe wallet being connected to millions of dollars. I never saw where John was getting his money. When I was covering Safemoon at a certain point, because I'm covering Safemoon, I have to come up with an idea like what's interesting to talk about Safemoon every day. And at a certain point, I was like, where are they getting their money from? And I'm like, they have a lot of money. They're doing the New York Times billboard, and they're doing all this stuff. It's like, where did they get their money? And I started asking, and nobody knew. Nobody could answer that question. And then it was like not long after I started asking that, and I'm not saying it's because, I'm just saying it happened to be that I was asking it, and then CoffeeZilla came out with this video, which seemed to like seal the deal of this is where it came from. So, whenever I hear people say, and I don't know, maybe it is true, but whenever I hear people say, like, we've been saying this the whole time, nobody showed me, or I never saw anybody show, like, people only said that they had access to the LP. They never demonstrated them using the LP from what I saw until CoffeeZilla.
But so what CoffeeZilla did was connect the dots for us. But as I said earlier, if not from the LP, then from where, right? Unlike V2, V1 was not behind a proxy, and we could actually see that there was no marketing wallet. We could actually see that there was no developer wallet, and that the only thing that existed was the LP itself, right? So if not from there, then from where?
Well, in the
Sure.
beginning, during the AMAs, they would say, and you can find the video if you can mute it, sorry, when Hank said that they had wallets that they were selling in order to fund the things, is what Hank was saying. You can find that in AMA of him saying, we have this wallet, we have to sell it. And they also said that they were using Safemoon Dev's wallet, and they said that he purchased those tokens. They were his, that were being used to fund, which, I don't believe. But that's what they were saying in the beginning. And then at a certain point in V2, they did have the tax. But what they already had their millions, because they got all their millions, or John got all his millions in April, or around April, whenever the whole Bitmart deal happened. That's when you could see the major difference in the AMAs going from 4 guys, on their computer screens to kind of this professional setup and everything. And that's when John started getting the millions on the blockchain.
It's a little frustrating because I think so many people are comfortable with the idea that it's for development, and at the end of the day, like, people just want the opportunity to invest in startups. But if we're going to do DeFi, it can't be that. Like, in my view, it's got to be something else.
I'm curious, does anybody have a positive opinion about how this situation could go, though? Because I know I've seen a couple thumbs down going around, and I know some people do hope that Safemoon can go forward. I mean, one positive but also kind of funny thing is this is the most decentralized Safemoon's ever been. So,
With John in jail.
yep, this is by far the most decentralized Safemoon's ever been. So there's your opportunity. It's like a swan song, you know what I mean? Where the reality is really fucking sad, but you could see the opportunity in there. So I do feel, because, well, let's say this, we all know the chain will always forever be there. So Safemoon will exist as a contract on chain. So yeah, you can DeFi token it in the future, but no.
Yeah, if anybody wants to come up and say anything, everybody is welcome. Just be respectful. I guess, who was the guy that was like the attorney or something? SEC security attorney? Peter?
Peter.
Yeah.
And you would say, because like a lot of people I think have hopes that John is going to beat this. Do you think you could elaborate on what that would look like and then like the likelihood of it or something?
Well, I mean, he's going to have to persuade a jury, if he goes that far, that the government failed to meet its burden of proving that he committed fraud in connection with the security. So the security analysis is going to be part of it. You know, the judge is going to have to determine whether Safemoon token was a security, because the crime is fraud in connection with a security. So that's why they're all saying this is XRP, because yes, like the security analysis, the Howey test, if you know what that is, that's a part of it, because that's how you prove it. But you know, I think most reasonable federal judges would say yes, when you're promoting a token, and you're making money off of that token based upon the expectation of profit, that's a security. And so, you know, I can see why people might want to defend John Karony just for that alone, because they don't believe that the SEC has a legitimate basis for jurisdiction here. So, you know, the holders that are comparing it to XRP will kind of trumpet that up. But unfortunately for them, you know, I don't think that's the way the law works. I think that Safemoon clearly was a security because of the way the liquidity was handled. And so then, you know, then there's fraud. And the allegations are pretty damning there too. You know, those text messages between John and Papa about when should we disclose this stuff. And then at the end of the day, rather than making an affirmative disclosure, they said, let's just edit the white paper and call it a day. That's
Yeah.
pretty bad.
Yeah, I thought that was Kyle at that point. But what's up, TNG?
Hello, mate. Long time.
Yeah, it's been a minute. Did
Sure
I upset you
has.
or something, man?
No, I just purged my feed of all the political shit. So I even have Vix muted, believe it or not. But
okay.
I still drop in.
I was
when it
like, oh,
comes.
okay, we don't have to talk about that. What's going on?
No, it was just like wanted to bring you guys' attention to something I saw today. I've shared up on the Nest, and like it really exemplifies, I think, what Peter was talking about people's like misunderstandings and stuff. But this is the sort of thing that we're dealing with, where this guy is saying that maybe John knew that he would be arrested, let the price tank to shake out all the paper hands before he really gets going, and then he will then know who the true Safemoon Army members are, and that they will be rewarded. And it's like this sort of thing just it goes beyond parody. I couldn't even in my wildest dreams make up something as like crazy as that. It's just the words of a lunatic. And yet this isn't like an uncommon thing. I'm seeing more and more people starting to suggest that like getting arrested was John's plan. And it, you know, there's no communicating with these people really. That's kind of it.
Yeah, I mean that's it's kind of sad because we've like I feel like as time has gone on, the evidence has gotten stronger and stronger and stronger, and it started with probably in the very beginning with them having access to the liquidity pool and like us finding out about like, hey, they have access to the LP. And I think their major defense for that at the time was during that audit was that we're doxxed, and so if we took from the LP, we would go to jail. And that's why you can trust that we're not going to do that. And that was even, you know, in CoffeeZo's video and in the old AMA.
That came full circle, didn't it?
Yeah. Where Thomas said that the Safemoon contract was a copy of B token and B token was a small rug. And the difference between that and us is we're not going to rug. We're never going to rug.
Or the fucking owls. Watching the owls fucking. That shit was just, oh my God. I can't believe the community fell for half the shit it did.
And that's a huge problem for them, you know, criminally in terms of state of mind. You know, if the prosecutor, you know, you have to prove that they knew something was wrong or that it wasn't quite right. And then you have them saying, if we do this, we're going to jail. That's not going to be good.
Yeah, that's a very fair point. And it's what's more alarming actually, and like I've said this on a couple of spaces now, but a lot of people don't make the connection. What's really alarming is that their primary defense in the civil class action lawsuits is scienter. It's basically people may have been defrauded, but you can't prove our intent behind it. And now, they, on top of everything else, you can add perjury to their charges as well, because they clearly knew that they were defrauding people and they were talking about it. So they're then going in court. Thomas and Kyle and John have all stood up in court, and their primary defense, all three individual defenses, motions to dismiss, is that they can't prove scienter, they can't prove the intent to defraud. And yes,
They have Kyle though.
yeah, Kyle. Well, yeah, Kyle put a motion to dismiss in as well, because they're all up there. Basically, Dave Portnoy got himself out of it because he didn't have any involvement. Hanks put something in basically saying, I really have had no involvement with anything at all. And then Kyle, Thomas, and John.
Oh, okay. This is the lawsuit. This is
the civil class action
my
suit.
bad.
Yeah.
You know what I was thinking? That's crazy. And I say this because I used to be a bad person and do bad things.
What do you mean?
If they would have, I don't. Shut up. If they were just not greedy, like think about this. If they were not greedy and just say siphoned off $1,000 a day each, they would basically be sitting at about $1 million each now, and probably nobody would have been none the wiser. But their greed for pulling out millions at a time got them caught. Like literally, they could have lived well off $1,000 a day, but they got greedy. Not defending that action, but just thinking about it, like. And I think that's going to be really telling in their court case too, because the amount of money they took was clearly done for greed, and that's going to, help prove the intent.
And it's frustrating, right? Because so many of us are in this space for, mistrust of institutions, whether it's banking or government.
Exactly.
Good. But now you've got that, which is so strong, and then the government comes with an ironclad case, and most of what you hear is, I hate the government. So it's kind of like a perversion of the ideals that got us all started. They hate the government so much that they run into the arms of someone that's just fleecing them, and it's too bad.
Yeah, and you also got people that hate the government up here too. Vix and I are definitely not fans of the government in our own different views, but both of us are also anti-government, but both of us also know that there are some good parts of the government that still operate.
Speak for yourself. For the feds that are listening, I love the government, especially three-letter agencies.
So if you think the government's going after Trump for a witch hunt, don't you think the Karony thing's a witch hunt too?
Stop! It was a joke. Don't go down rabbit holes.
I know. I'm just messing with you, man. We all have rights to our opinions, but I'm just glad after years of calling this out, being banned from Reddit and the fucking Discord almost immediately. Like, I've shown the fucking post of me calling out the fucking non-locked LP literally over 2 years ago, and I'm just glad this is finally happening.
Yeah, I think that the best course of action for a lot of Safemoon maxis is to just be like, you have to do it publicly, is be like, I was wrong, and I apologize to anybody that I, promoted this during these times, and I apologize to everybody that I slandered. Because there is most maxis were doing that. They were defending John at the worst times to defend him. They were promoting Safemoon at the worst times to promote it. Every time the price would go down, they would say buy more. Every time the price would go up a little bit, they would say to the moon. And that's why I said at this point, I feel like promoting at this point, like you're no different than John. Like if you had access to what John had access to, the same people promoting Safemoon right now probably would have done the same thing.
It's always when the story ends too, you realize that it was the people smiling in your face who are the ones deceiving you, but it was us assholes talking shit to you, trying to save your fucking money.
So, do you guys know of Christian? His handle on Twitter is Hoop Gimmicks. He had like a blue logo with a Safemoon thing on it. But he was like pretty vicious in terms of his like defense. So he would like go straight to like ad hominem, all that sort of shit. And after the indictments, he just said like, just put up straight on his post publicly, like, if you're buying Safemoon, it's a really irresponsible thing to do, and I think you're crazy. And we sort of like asked him a bit about his views, and he just basically said, he had blinders on. He was getting like quite emotional about it, and that he just straight up apologized to everyone. He like unblocked everybody and apologized. So like don't get me wrong, like we're not out here looking for apologies. That's not what it's about. It's not what it's about for me. But it's appreciated all the same when somebody who spent like months, if not years, calling me like really sort of childish names and stuff, then just says, yeah, fair enough, like I was wrong and I'm sorry for what I did. And it is appreciated, and ultimately, like what it does, the way I prefer it, the way I think that it's a good thing, is that it lets other people who are in their position or kind of on the fence know that it's okay to just come out and say, like, it's not a good idea to buy this token because you'll lose your ass. Like if John's bail is denied on Wednesday, which there's an extremely high chance of happening, that chart is not going to hold up where it is now. It's going to it'll bottom out.
I think that it's not for my sake or your guys' sake or anyone who's been like trying to tell them sake. It's for your own sake. You're the one that was slandering me and other people. You said that I was scamming people, trying to steal them. I was doing it for money, that I was being paid. You called me an idiot, and it treated me like I was dumb. And it's for your own sake that the best course is to not just like disappear and pretend like none of that happened, because you publicly promoted Safemoon at the worst times. You probably encouraged mindsets that cause people to lose a lot of money, and you never know what other people are holding. It might be, you might only hold a couple hundred, they might be holding 5-10 grand or something. And you attacked the people that were telling them the most important information to have at that time, that would have, if they'd at least just looked at it realistically, could have made the decision from a realistic perception. But you caused and encouraged a delusional perception from which they chose to make their investment decision. And yeah, I mean, nobody's like, well, I don't know about other people, but I'm not here to like rub it in anyone's face. Like if you say, yeah, I messed up, my bad, like I was wrong, I'm gonna be like, okay, cool, no hard feelings. Like I'm not gonna be like, yeah, you should be, you dumbass. I'm not gonna like rub it in. But you also have to, it's like for your own sake, for the type of person you are and who you're going to choose to be in life, but also for the effect that you have on other people's bags and other people's mindsets when you're reinforcing these types of mindsets that cause people to lose a lot of money. If you go, I had a post recently that said, how much did you lose in Safemoon? There's tons of people on there, 50,000, 60,000. I was like, holy shit, dude.
I mean, you know what I do? Like,
I'm old school, so I'm a
the
little bit
wallets. The wallets I've seen, and some people.
Yeah, you're
there's
probably
a
like the
guy who
expert on
remortgaged his
tracking
house.
them. Yeah.
It's like 160 people account for, even before this shit that happened last week. 160 people account for over $3 million in losses. It's an insane amount of money per person. But like one of the hardest things to do in life is to just say I was wrong and to admit you're wrong. And like, to me, I can only ever give respect to those people that just put their hand up and publicly say that they were wrong.
So TNG actually said this the other day, and I think it was dead on. And of course I'm not going to say it as well or with a cheeky British accent. Do you want to listen to a convenient lie or a hard truth, right? And most people, when they're hearing, if I hang on here long enough, I'm going to become rich and have riches beyond my wildest dreams. It's a lot easier to fall into that narrative than, hey, they're stealing all your money and they're gonna fuck you 6 ways from Sunday.
There's actually a quote for that. There's a quote for that. It's easier to fool a man than to convince a man he has been fooled.
Yeah, and these sayings have been around for hundreds of years, because ultimately, like, the mentality behind people like John, Thomas, and Kyle hasn't changed, and also the mentality around people who buy it and pin their dreams on it haven't changed, because ultimately people want to make money as quickly as they can with as minimal effort as they can, and it's part of the reason we're all here in crypto, because we can throw our money into the stock market and then jerk ourselves off when we get like 5% raise over like 10 years. But that's not the way we want to do it. But like the methods behind how people defraud other people haven't really changed. All the sayings apply because it's just the same thing over and over. Like at this point, realistically, people should be well aware of it, but it happens day in, day out.
And that, by the way, is why the SEC continues to assert jurisdiction. There's not much difference between a lot of the stuff that's happening now and a lot of the wildcat loans and fraudulent, startups in the 1920s that gave rise to the creation of the SEC in the first place.
Yeah, and the Web 2.0 bubble.
If anyone wants to come up, you guys are welcome to come up and say anything about Safemoon, what's going on with it.
Yeah, a positive view would be nice to hear, just to at least hear the other side.
Yeah, I scared away all the maxis, and I doubt they're going to be coming in and being like, "Oh yeah, we're wrong about it." And when they do come in, they come in like a lot of them. Like Joseph is one of the main ones that's like full blown defending Safemoon, and he's saying every time the price goes up just a tiny bit, he posts a picture of it and says, "To the moon," and then it'll drop like twice as much.
Yeah, they don't like you. You used to be one of them, and it always seems like if you're one of the turners, they have an extra bit of aggression towards you.
Well, like for me, like the main thing of like approaching them was like, this is for your best interest, and I'm trying to keep emotion out of it, and like that's why I posted that video of me going into the water cooler space after CoffeeZilla came out with his first video, and like my reasoning was, guys, we know that Kyle stole, we know that Thomas took, like why would we make the same mistake that we made each time and just assume that the current people that we have didn't? Why would we think maybe they are too, and maybe we should question them? But just even suggesting that type of logic contradicted the maxi mindset, which was John was the savior, and so they got angry and kicked me out, and yeah.
I was on a space with Joseph, and I think the argument there is he kept saying, all right, but companies do this all the time in the stock market. They raise capital, they spend it, and everybody is okay with it. So he was saying that over and over and over again. And I get it. Like, that's the argument that they need to make then. So the answer is not to like support the ones that are doing so fraudulently, but to petition the government for, different startup investment rules. If that's what you want to do on chain, that then at least know what you're arguing for.
Do you know what really chaps my ass about this is how easily they could have done it legitimately. Now, I'm not a supporter of Safemoon at all, and I personally think that the vision is a load of bunk. Like, I think that, and I think Crypto Control might be one of the new people, but the people who say it could have been something great, it's just kind of like a layer of cope, because ultimately the vision of Safemoon was given to you by the person who's now sitting in jail for defrauding all of you. Like it's just kind of a dud in my eyes, and it always has been. It's kind of like a money has to come from somewhere problem that people don't really think about. But
let me say something to that real fast, because like I wanted to say this earlier, or okay, I just want to say I'll say it real fast. That what if I felt like they could have put out the crappiest white label products and they would have done really good just because it would have had so many users and it would have attracted other people to want to be on it, like an NFT marketplace or potentially, an exchange or something like that. You think that if they hadn't have done that before they ruined their reputation, you felt like no matter what, it was always a farce or something?
Well, I kind of feel like with the exchange, for instance, that reflections as a concept just don't work at all, and that if they brought out an exchange and they were like onboarding people to use it, then people would, let's say back then it was all 10% for tax, they'd put $1,000 of Bitcoin on, so they'd actually give up $100 worth of Bitcoin straight away, and then they would then spend months and then years waiting to recover that $100 through reflections, and then it's just kind of a gimmick. But I mean, all of that aside, I kind of I see what you're coming from, because the community aspect was huge at the time. But what I was trying to say, what really annoys me about Safemoon is actually how they had such an easy route to legitimacy. So the issue is that it was obviously created as a rug pull from the start, because Kyle was launching tokens like "Give me your money," and he basically got rugged with B token and then copied it and renamed it to Safemoon. As Safemoon grew in popularity, Kyle probably realized he actually had no way to recover money from the popularity of it. He had no way to gain revenue, so he started to withdraw the LP. He actually did this like 2 or 3 days after the token contract was launched. But with that aside, let's say John takes it over. What he could have done very easily is say, and we know that he raised $1 million for an exchange, is just say, we need to raise some money for a new version of the Safemoon contract for somebody like a Solidity developer to make one that has that tax structure, which they introduced later on in V2, where they gain a portion of Safemoon tokens as revenue to use to sell. Because the issue was all the way through 2021 and past the V2 thing, I think they introduced it in like April or May or something of 2022, but they had no way to actually get revenue at all, no legitimate revenue, only until the swap launched, and then they could sell listings on the swap. However, if they had raised a bit of money, got a new contract early on in 2021 that gave them the ability to take a small scraping of that tax at 10%, then they could have just been selling legitimately earned tokens for legitimate revenue and using that revenue to fund development, fund premises, and yeah, also pay out a salary for themselves, which they can then use to buy shit. And it was so popular, it wouldn't have taken them long at all from that tax structure to buy themselves whatever fancy cars and mansions they wanted. And that's what really annoys me, is that they had like a route to do it, but then they just kept taking the LP.
Like, you saw that clip with Hank, and you know how divided that Kyle, Thomas, and Hank were against John, that they went and started Piggy because they wanted to make Safemoon, but without John. Sure. And it sounded like Hank in that clip was like, and I'm pretty sure that clip was like, he didn't think people were going to hear it, but he said, we tried to tell him not to take the LP, but he wanted to rug, and they were getting all this FUD because John wouldn't lock up, $250 million. So doesn't that seem to suggest, and I don't know, that at least Hank and maybe other people at that point, maybe Thomas, I don't know, were saying, we're getting a lot of FUD because you won't lock up this liquidity. And then John was saying, no, we can use it. And then in his own words, he says John wanted to rug the liquidity.
Speaking of that tax, that's to me, that's the one reason why I still don't believe why people believed in Safemoon. If you just kind of do basic math and realize when you take that tax system and you start not only fractionizing the money, but then dividing it among hundreds of thousands of users, that 1% going back to the dev team was far more lucrative than the reflection system could have ever possibly been. More money would have been going to the hands of 10 to 20 developers than to the hands of 100 to 5 to 700,000
and this
holders.
is the funny thing.
And to me, that's like socialism tokenized, and I don't know how people did not recognize that from the get-go. Because to me, again, Safemoon, even without the fraud, is garbage.
So like a week ago, Champ was the #1 token holder. He had 7.7 billion tokens. Because the reflection system is proportionate, and Champ every single day was receiving the lion's share of reflections, he had such a large bag and so many reflections that if he took all of the reflections he earned and moved them into a separate wallet, that separate wallet would still be in the top 10 of the token holders.
I was covering Safemoon for a long time, and like I said, a lot of us were really new to crypto. And at a certain point when I was watching it, I'm like, I've said, this is what I thought of this while I was covering this, was that the problem with crypto, in my opinion, or any project, is that the whales are going to have the control over the project, which is the price, which is what people care about. And as soon as they sell, they kind of take the project with them. And there's this dominance problem that whales have. And reflections, what that did, because it evenly distributed to everybody based on the amount they held, it amplified that problem. It was now whales don't even have to sell their bag. They could just sell the Safemoon they're getting, because they're getting more than everybody else, and what everybody else is getting is insignificant. And so at a certain point in my mind, I was like, okay, as a believer in Safemoon, I was like, we have to go through all these. We're kind of like in line to take profits, and everybody above you is in line before you. And the only way that reflections or whatever would become a reality for us would be is if all these people took profits and you worked your way up as new people came in. That was my mindset through that. But I would agree that evenly distributing a tax to everybody is useless, in my opinion, especially if it's the token, because then the value of it can go down. Like with other projects, it could be a stable coin, and at least you're getting, stable coin.
It's hard for me to understand how people could think some sort of economic system where you have so many people just selling reflections was going to be ever feasibly possible. Like, what kind of economic system could support something like that? Zero. You would literally have to have more money
Oh,
in
yeah.
SafeMoon than the entire world's economy doubled to ever have something like that even start to work.
That is like, yeah, that's a huge point. That is, everybody's talking about reflections, but in order
it's
for
just math.
people have to sell to take their reflections.
And people have to buy those reflections. And what you think, to me, it's just simple math and logic. Like, I just don't know how people ever fell for stupid shit like that to begin with.
Well, I think the reason that people did is obvious. It's because we hear about people making millions off of buying some stupid crypto, and we know it can happen, and that's what we're all seeking. We're all seeking this cheap buy. And you can buy a scam project and make money. I bought this stupid token, Andrew Tate token, right when Andrew Tate was getting popular, and then I sold it, and then it ended up either being a pump and dump or a rug. So it's like, it's not even like if a project has to be good to make money off of it. It's just that's the space we're in,
I always think part of my opinion comes from because of the city I live in. I live in a city where people are winning millions of dollars every fucking night. But you don't see me running to the casino saying that this shit's gonna be a fucking income and you could live this way and oh, it's the best thing ever. Let me go praise fucking Steve Wynn and suck his nuts. Like, oh, come on.
Someone has their hand up. Great control.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, guys, anybody can just speak whenever. Go ahead.
I appreciate that. I thank you for coming up. TNG had said something. I wanted to go all the way back, if you guys want to do a little time traveling with me, all the way back to 2021, because I put my hand up because of something he said. So close your eyes and go back to that absolute degen shitcoin spring of like April, May, when things really kicked off. And the auto compounding, 2% reflections thing. I know that you're saying, how could anyone fall for it? Bro, a lot of people fall for it the same way they fall for like carnival games and other shit like that. They're gullible and they want quick, fast money. And everybody was new to reflections at the time. And like you said, TNG said Safemoon didn't even make their own contract, right? TNG, this was a normal thing. And they were not in it. And this is important, for the long haul. They didn't know about the Gambia back when they launched this contract. You guys, there were no windmills when they started Safemoon. They were trying to make like mid six figures and then rug it. Like, I'm not afraid to say that. There was no way they meant a legitimate business plan. They didn't picture the Safemoon exchange. That's where I'm at. Like, I'm a degen. I have 5 other telegrams that are way worse than Safemoon. Safemoon's not the worst thing I've ever seen. I'm in places right now where there are people crying and the chart is way worse and it happened way faster than Safemoon. So this is total degen logic and it sucks for them, but it took a long time and we got to watch it happen in like slow motion real time. And I think that's the important story here, is this is like a long, slow study in the sunken cost fallacy. And I'll stop my rant there, but sunken cost fallacy in action for sure.
You nailed it. You absolutely fucking nailed it. It's so apparent that the Safemoon vision was just built iteratively on whatever was trending at the time. John would just bounce hyperactively from one subject to another. Oh, we're going to do a hardware wallet because Ledger called us a scam. Oh, we're going to do an NFT marketplace because NFTs are trending. Oh, we're going to have a cross chain on us. It's like every single
exchanges won't list it, so we'll make our own.
Yeah, exchanges won't list us. Yeah, exactly. And like Orbital Shield is just the weirdest one because it's just simply John's family know the Sprags.
Not to mention a massive step back in crypto security.
Yeah,
you don't replace a 12-seed passphrase with a username and password.
Yeah, replace it with something that people use on multiple websites. Yeah, GG. Yeah, it's just a mess. Like, John basically has opportunities given to him, basically put under his nose. Like the wind turbine. I'm speaking like an idiot now. Windmills mill wheat into flour, by the way, John. So the wind turbine thing was given to him by his parents, I believe. And he all he had to do was go to the Gambia with a business plan, and then like it would start moving forward, and he couldn't be bothered to do it. It's like the guy is just like a lazy ADHD kid and everybody praises him as being like this fucking genius. It blows my mind.
So I got a message. I don't know if this is true or not. Anybody up here can speak on this. Anybody's welcome to come up in this space, guys, if you have something you want to say or share. It says, Ben Phillips brought Jack Haynes in. It was Ben's marketing company that did the marketing for Safemoon. Jack came after the LP was pulled and after Ben sold. I don't know if that's true or not.
No, the LP was being pulled all the way through 2021. All the way through. And the reason Jack left, if David's word is reliable, which I think at this point we can all agree that it is that Jack was getting pissed off that John was pulling so much money and Jack wasn't getting his fair share, or what he believed to be his fair share. Like David told me at one point, he went in a hotel room in London where John and Jack were staying, and in Jack's room, he'd just gone shopping, and it was like from the floor to the ceiling, like designer clothing bags. Just like literally, they would, there's videos of Jack and Ben Phillips in London eating gold-plated steak and drinking like £12,000 bottles of champagne. And then Brian also collaborates that because he says when they flew him out to London, they went to a club where John used to live near, and it was just like they would just get a VIP room there and just fucking party all night, just spending holders' money.
Sounds nice in theory. For
Well,
like what?
well, yeah, this is
For
it,
like 2 years? What's the average now for SBF and these guys? Like 1.5 years, and then you're just slapped up, cuffed up after this. I wonder if they'd look back now and feel that same way in the club,
burn out or fade away. But this is the thing, like what's really important is that David told you shady shit that was going on with John, and nobody wanted to believe him. And then Ryan left, and Ryan told you all shady shit about Safemoon and John. Nobody wanted to believe him. And now these indictments have come out, and all of a sudden, David's word, if you go back and look at what David said, and you go back and look at what Ryan said, it's just bang on. Like, they weren't lying, they weren't exaggerating or embellishing anything. They just told you what happened, and the holders attacked them for it, for giving information, because they perceived that it would harm Safemoon's reputation or almighty Lord and Savior John's reputation.
Are you guys familiar with anybody that ever had to be deprogrammed from something else like Scientology? Like, nobody gets excited about learning out like one of their core beliefs may not be true. Like a flat earther or a Scientologist. Some of us might laugh at some people who maybe don't believe the things that we might hold to be true. But man, if you can really wreck someone, and it takes a long time to deprogram somebody. I'm sure you guys all have like a parallel that's not crypto for that.
Brian, get up here, man. I know you want to rant.
It's right in it.
So you're telling me in the end, most of the holders never used logic. It was just protecting the value of their bags.
Yeah. I mean, you look at that guy I've pinned at the top, man. You tell me, do you think he needs to be deprogrammed? Because I think he does.
That red jar? Yeah, I read that. Yeah, it's just people thinking he's doing it on the inside and he was working with the FBI. Well, he wouldn't be sitting in jail fighting for a bail hearing if he was the one trying to bring them down.
Well, like, I kind of get where people are coming from as far as like they would look at, I forget what project they would name, but they would say everybody, because I just got into crypto, a lot of us just got into crypto, but they would say, oh, in the past, we went through a lot of this before where they said it was a rug and all these bad things would come out, and then I sold and then the price took off. So I'm not going to fall for that again. As I've heard that a lot throughout this, is that they think that you're trying to convince them to miss out on their millions. That's what like the main mindset is this is going to take off one day. They're all going to be rich. They're all reinforcing that idea for each other. And I do think that that's a huge motivator. Like, that's the motivating factor. But then towards the end, right when Safemoon Joe got out, there was people within the Safemoon community coming and saying, hey, I know these people know, they admit this. They told me that behind the scenes, they knew John took the liquidity, or that what he did was wrong, but that they were lying in order to try to get their bags to go up so that they could sell. That's what they were saying about some kind of group of influencers within the Twitter space.
You don't have to convince me that that's true. Like, that's definitely a thing. And that's again, that's happening in 100 other telegrams right now as we're here on Spaces. There's people all over trying to convince other people to come in and scoop up the exit liquidity so they can get the hell out of something they know is stinky. That's welcome to crypto.
I tell you, this is why you guys, some people hate when I say this, but this is exactly why I only stick to proof of work projects. Tokens that are just written on another chain are doomed to fail.
I think you're just, you're just gambling, and I think that there's so many different factors you have to take into mind, and it's always a risk. But you could have made millions of dollars off of Safemoon. Any average person could have bought very early on, and you could have bought when Jake Paul told you about it, to buy it, and made a lot of money off of it and sold. And so I think the most important thing to keep
I
in
could have
mind is
put
you
20
can't.
bucks in a different machine and hit 8 of 8 a keno too. Should I
Well,
use
the
that
most
same
important
logic?
thing to keep in mind is that I don't think you can just put any crypto and then label it as something or not. It's about like finding what is the most realistic way to perceive this thing and then letting everybody decide for themselves how much they want to gamble or risk on it. Because we don't know, you don't know if some crappy project might take off or might not. I mean, you could say statistically that it's most likely not to, but even then, I think that if you start to say it's going to do one or the other, that's when you enter into like being a scammer or deceitful. If you say it has the possibility to do both, then that's good. But I don't like discrediting as a whole or discrediting really anything as a whole because there's just possibility. Like I made probably like 70 grand on a BSC project on Evergrow, and that was a rewards project, and it didn't have any utility. And like I said, and the same thing with a lot of these projects that end up failing, like even like Dogecoin or whatever, some of these other huge ones. There's these huge opportunities to take profits, and that's how you should approach it for what it is. It's probably going to have a massive spike in price, and then you have that potential to take profits. And then it's just getting in and getting out, right? That's the goal. That's the only way to realistically approach these. If you say like, oh, it's a scam because it doesn't infinitely go up. A lot of people have that standard for cryptos. It has to go up forever, otherwise it's a scam. If the price comes down, then it's a scam. It's like, no, just because the price comes down doesn't mean it's a scam either. It means people just sold and took profits, and as long as the team didn't have the hand in that, then it's not a scam. It just means the whales took profits.
And that's why I like proof of work. There's an established network behind it, not just a coin people go in and out of.
Wait, people don't trade Bitcoin?
But it's not the sole reason that Bitcoin is there.
Yeah, so I'm probably going to run this a little bit longer. The main things I was wanting to go over today was really just to hear from anybody in the community who wanted to talk. It would be cool if there was any like Safemoon maxis, but I doubt that the last place they would want to come is into this space and talk about it. But if you want to, if you changed your mind and you're just listening and you wanted to say what was going on in your mind, like I'll make sure that everybody's respectful to you or whatever. But that's kind of one of the things that we had to go through with this is a lot of us that are fudders. There's a couple that just were never a part of Safemoon, but most of us were believers in Safemoon. We believed in it, we bought it, we supported it, we put effort into it. And it's kind of just like, at what point did you turn? And some people, it was Thomas, getting high on the AMA and like showing off his car. And other people, it was Thomas getting fired or Thomas quitting. And then other people, we all had these different selling points, and where you finally your perception shifted, and you were able to just question it, because as soon as you're able to just question it, you could see that something's not adding up. And
That's what did it for me. Watching
which one?
watching the blockchain, what was it? I forget what its title was. Blockchain, whatever it was. Walk into a Goxstein space with over 400, 500 listeners, whatever it was, and just start bashing the project that he was supposedly working for. That's where I was like,
Yeah, I didn't realize it at the time, but when this was going down, me and Safemoon Whale and Safemoon Joe were like kind of becoming cool. We were like kind of working with each other a little bit, doing videos, doing live streams. And we had this whole plan to go meet in Dubai with Safemoon Whale. And he wanted to pay for like I figured it was like 20 or 40 grand to do a Safemoon advertisement on the Burj Khalifa. And we thought, oh, this would be amazing if he did that. And so we had this huge thing like planned out, and like I didn't know if I was going to do it or not. But then everything started going down with Thomas, and he was leaving, and I was live streaming it and stuff. And I've told this story before, but I haven't told it probably as I kind of have, but I had to kind of hide it for his sake for a while because he just told me don't tell anybody this. But he said I found out some stuff in the middle of my live stream. He like I had to mute myself so that nobody could hear me or him, and he told me like Thomas is pretending to be on the team, and I'm selling. And he's like, I'm giving you a warning before I sell, so you can sell if you want to. I was like, dude, I can't do that to all these people. Not that it mattered. My sell wouldn't have affected anything because I had such a small bag. But, and then he was like, yeah, I'm just letting you know. And we had already just watched the price tank because of what happened with Thomas, right? And so I just went back to my live stream and I was like, hey guys, if you guys are thinking about buying the dip, you might want to wait a minute. And we watched it tank again right there. I was going somewhere with that, but I forgot. Was there? Oh, go ahead, negativity. Sorry, bro.
Hey guys, so you know me as Safemoon Positivity. So first of all, I want to apologize to TNG and to UCC because I was wrong all this time. So sorry for my English. I'm French, so you know.
Oh,
so
you're good, man.
I want to tell my story about Safemoon. So I got in like right before the big spike, and like so it went up and stuff. So what I think what happened, yeah, you want to hear about former maxis. So I am one of them, and you know that.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think most of the Safemoon army, they are like newbies. They don't know anything about crypto, and that what I was before I start to learn. Because if you know a little bit, we had so many red flags in the front of us. You call it a cult, and that's what it is. It's like a cult. Once you get in there, you just cannot go. You just keep hearing promises, and like you think you're gonna get somewhere. But you know, I've learned a bit since like 3 years, and watching again like the blockchain video from John, you can see that this guy doesn't know anything about what he's talking about. And I was one of them, like, yeah, something, it's coming, you know, it's coming. They're gonna drop something, but I don't know how to explain it. It's like an addiction. It's like a drug. Once you're in there, everybody is bullish. It's like you just get blind and you just go for it. So yeah.
Negativity, dude. I'm so honestly, I'm so thrilled to hear you. First of all, you were a maxi indeed, but you were never a dick. You were never a dick to me. We obviously disagreed. Sorry for publicizing your buys and sells, but
TNG,
it was pretty
I have
funny.
to tell you, TNG, I have to tell you, a few months ago, you told me that I lost like 100K on Safemoon. I have to tell you, maybe what you see on the blockchain, you can see 100K, but from my pocket, it was never 100K. I never spent like more than maybe 20K or maybe 15 to 20K into Safemoon because I was like living, going into shit coins, making some money, coming back, put the money back. So from my pocket, I lost like maybe 15 to 20K. But
in terms
overall,
of like paper profits,
and then at last, I had like, I don't know, I had like 10K on